A very good morning to my dear students. Once again, welcome back to 8th grade English class. Today, we are going to deal with the poem which is included in the 4th chapter in your supplementary reader entitled as How the Leaves Came Down, written by Susan Coolidge. The poem is a narrative one as it is developed through the conversation between the father tree and the children leaves. We can call the poem as an environmental poem. Now let us have a look at the preface portion before getting into the poem. Listen, now I am going to read the preface passage. Listen. Have you ever wondered how leaves change color and fall in autumn? If you were to ask them, the leaves would seem like little children going to bed. Here it is asked that, have you ever noticed the color of leaves which are about to fall down? And it is also asked that the falling of leaves would seem like the little children going to bed. Anyway, before going to the poem, it is better to have an idea about the 4 seasons. Do you know the 4 seasons? Yes, tell me which are they? Yeah, they are spring, summer, autumn and winter. And the season mentioned here in this poem is autumn. And it is marked especially when leaves fall down from trees. It is actually the 3rd season of the year. And this poem actually happens in a winter season. Not in a winter season, in an autumn season where the leaves of every trees are about to fall down. Okay. Now, before going to start the poem, let me to read the poem first. So all of you please listen carefully and also read the poem along with me. Okay, here I am going to read. Listen. I will tell you how the leaves came down. The great tree to his children said, "You're getting sleepy, yellow and brown. Yes, very sleepy, little red. It's quite time to go to bed." "Oh," begged each silly, pouting leaf, "let us a little longer stay. Dear father tree, behold our grief. It's such a very pleasant day. We do not want to go away." So for just one more merry day, to the great tree the leaflets clung, frolicked and danced and had their way. Upon the autumn breezes swung, whispering all their spots among. Perhaps the great tree will forget and let us stay until the spring, if we all beg and coax and fret. But the great tree did no such thing. He smiled to hear their whispering. "Come, children, all to bed," he cried, and ere the leaves could urge their prayer, he shook his head, and far and wide, fluttering and rustling everywhere, down sped the leaflets through the air. I saw them. On the ground they lay, golden and red, a huddled swarm, waiting till one from far away, white bedclothes heaped upon her arm, should come to wrap them safe and warm. The great bare tree looked down and smiled. "Good night, dear little leaves," he said, and from below each sleepy child replied good night and murmured, "It's nice to go to bed." By Susan Coolidge. Now, before getting into or going to enter into the poem, you might have an idea about the content of the poem. Even though the poem may seem as simple and direct as it revolves around a conversation between the father tree and the children leaves, the poem may have something more than that. Maybe we can call it as the implied meaning or the dhwani. Anyway, let us try to find out what is the implied meaning or what is the inherent meaning the poet tries to convey through his poem while going to the poem. Now, here I am going to read the first stanza. Please do listen and read with me. I will tell you how the leaves came down. The great tree to his children said, "You're getting sleepy, yellow and brown. Yes, very sleepy, little red. It's quite time to go to bed." What do you understand from the first stanza? In the first stanza, the poet indirectly says that nature has its own signs. See, for example, grey hair is an automatic mechanism that tells us that someone is turning old. And boy children developing moustache and beard is another kind of sign that they are becoming young, that they are living childhood period and entering into adulthood. Likewise, if you are looking at the first stanza, we can find references to color like yellow, brown and red, and they suggest the ending period of their life, or they refer to the ending period in which the leaves are about to fall. If you look at the trees, especially at the eve of autumn days, you can find that leaves having yellow and brown colors are about to fall, or about to separate from the branches, or about to separate from the stem. And if you look at the floor under the tree, you can find that those leaves that have already been fallen are red in color. That is why yellow and brown are here referred as sleepy, which means about to fall from the branches, and red is here referred as very sleepy because they have already been fallen. Okay, so through the first stanza, the poet indirectly introduces what he actually wants to convey through the poem. What is that? Tell me. Yes, yeah. For everything, nature has a reason, and for everything, nature has a time. It's quite time to go to bed. So the father tree tells to his children that it's the time to be separated from the main tree, because the father tree knows it very well that it's their time, and he clearly knows that if they depart, then only new leaves will come. Okay, so this is all about the first stanza. Here I am going to read the second stanza, so please do listen and read along with me. "Oh," begged each silly, pouting leaf, "let us a little longer stay. Dear father tree, behold our grief. It's such a very pleasant day. We do not want to go away." Now, when the father tree warns them that it's the time to get separated from the tree, they beg to give them one more day, as it is a very pleasant day. So they do not want to go away or to get separated from the root. So they kindly beg the father tree to see their grief and allow them one more day to remain there on the tree. Okay, and what do you mean by potting? What do you mean by potting? Yeah, you can note the meaning of potting as to show displeasure by thrusting out the lips. Okay, to show displeasure by thrusting out the lips. So leaves express their displeasure, their disinterest to get separated from the main branch, or to get separated from the stem of the tree. Okay, now here I am going to read the next stanza. Please do listen and read with me. "So for just one more merry day, to the great tree the leaflets clung, frolicked and danced and had their way upon the autumn breezes swung, whispering all their sports among." The day is very pleasant. So allow us one more day to be with you, Father Tree. So, in that way, the leaves are actually requesting, the leaves are actually begging. Clung here means to hold very tightly. Okay, so the leaves are actually requesting the Father Tree to hold them tightly for one more day. See, for example, in the presence of your parents, how do you feel? You are all happy, comfortable, like that. Okay, likewise, here the leaves in the presence of their Father Tree moves happily and dances lively. So they are dancing and moving happily, and they are very comfortable, they are very free, they are very happy in the presence of their Father Tree. So they are simply dancing and moving happily. And frolicked here means merry or joyous. So frolicked and danced and had their way. That means, yeah, the leaves are actually dancing and moving in a happy mood. Then look at the next two lines. Upon the autumn breezes swung, whispering all their spots among. Then what do you mean by breezes? Breezes means a gentle wind. Then what do you mean by swung? Swung means to dance. And what do you mean by whispering? Whispering means the act of speaking in a quiet voice. Now let us come back to the discussion of the last two lines. Yeah, see, imagine when the wind started to blow, what happens? Yeah, ultimately, or as a result, the leaves also get started to dance. As a result, what happens? Yeah, as a result, possibly there would be a sound, the sound of the leaves touching one on the other. Okay, so the poet assumes this sound as the whispering sound mentioned here. Okay, so in that way, the poet assumes the sound produces when the autumn breezes come to that of the whispering sound of the leaves here. Okay, now let us move to the next stanza. Here I am going to read the next stanza. Please do listen. Perhaps the great tree will forget, and let us stay until the spring, if we all beg and coax and fret. But the great tree did no such thing. He smiled to hear their whispering. The leaves are actually wished to persuade or request to allow them there on the root for one more day. But the great tree doesn't hear to their plea or doesn't hear to their request. Instead, he smiles to hear their whispering. Then what do you mean by coax? Yeah, coax here means persuade. So actually the leaves are interested to remain on the Father Tree. So for that purpose, they keep on trying to beg the Father Tree to allow them to remain there on the branches for one more day. But he smiles to hear their whispering. That means, the Father Tree doesn't listen to their plea or their entreaty or their request. Okay, so here I am going to read the next stanza. Please do listen and read along with me. Come, children, all to bed, he cried, and ere the leaves could urge their prayer, he shook his head, and far and wide, fluttering and rustling everywhere, down sped the leaflets through the air. Here the Father Tree orders them. The time is already over. Yeah, the time is already over. So leave to go to bed. Leave to go to bed. Yeah, that means, please get separated from the tree. And before doing any favor to their plea, Yeah, that is what it is said here. And ere the leaves could urge their prayer, he shook his head and far and wide. Yeah, and before doing any favor to their plea, to their entreaty, to their request, the father tree shakes his head, and in that way he leaves the leaflets. Through the air. So in that way he avoids, or he leaves the leaflets through the air. If you look at the image, yeah, in page number 44, there is an image. There is an image of a bare tree. Bare tree means without any leaves. Yeah, you can look at the image. If you look at the image, the thing is very clear. Yeah, you can find that the father tree is without leaves. Because of what? Yeah, before doing any favor to the leaves request, the father tree shakes his head, and in that way he leaves, or he avoids the leaflets through the air. So as a result, the father tree became a bare tree. That is what here it is said, that fluttering and rustling everywhere downsped the leaflets through the air. What do you mean by fluttering? Fluttering means to flap or wave quickly. And what do you mean by rustling? Rustling means to move with a soft crackling sound. So the father tree is actually trying to flap its branches so quickly. For what purpose? Yeah, the father tree knows that the leaves are not at all interested to get separated from the main tree. So without paying attention to their request, or without paying attention to their request, the father tree actually shakes his head. So that is what the father tree actually, father tree is fluttering. Fluttering means flapping or wave quickly, flapping the branches very quickly. For what purpose? In order to avoid the leaves. Okay. And rustling everywhere. What do you mean by rustling? Yeah, rustling is actually the sound which produces when the leaves are about to fall. Okay, so when the father tree actually flutters, or to flap or wave quickly its branches, the leaves are all about to fall. So at that time, there produces a particular sound, a soft crackling sound, that is here referred as rustling sound. So one can hear a rustling sound everywhere, downsped the leaflets through the air. So in that way, the leaflets leaves through the air. So this is all about this stanza. Now I am going to move with the next stanza. Please do listen and read along with me. I saw them, on the ground they lay, golden and red, a huddled swarm, waiting till one from far away, white bedclothes heaped upon her arm, should come to wrap them safe and warm. So, if we look at the ground, now we can find that the leaves in golden and red color are laying like crowded ones. So if you look at the image given on page number 44, you can find leaves laying here and there on the floor under the tree. Okay, so all are crowded in a small space together. Yeah, that is what here in the poem it is said, that golden and red, a huddled swarm. What do you mean by huddled? Yeah, huddled means a crowded together. So when the father tree avoids its leaves, suddenly the leaflets leaves through the air, and it falls down on the floor under the tree, and as a result all leaves are crowded in a small space under the tree on the floor. Okay, so it speaks about the sleepy mood in which the leaves are. So now the leaves are in a sleepy mode. Yeah, because the father tree actually sends them to sleep. So that is what in the beginning of the poem, or the poem opens like that. Yeah, in the first stanza we can find that, yeah, you are getting sleepy, yellow and brown. Yes, very sleepy, little red. It's quite time to go to bed. So in that way the father tree actually sends them to sleep. Now they are actually sleeping. That means they are separated from the main tree and they are laying on the floor, on the ground. That means they are sleeping. Okay, so this stanza clearly speaks about the sleepy mood in which the leaves are. So once the father tree actually avoids its leaves, or once the father tree actually sends the leaves with a huge shake, yeah, the leaves actually fall down on the earth and they start sleeping. Okay, so finally we are moving on to the last stanza. The great bare tree looked down and smiled. "Good night, dear little leaves," he said, and from below each sleepy child replied, "Good night," and murmured, "It's so nice to go to bed." Finally, the father tree looks down and says good night to the departed leaves. The leaves that are, yeah, separated from the main tree and laying on the ground. And so in that way father tree actually tells to them good night. Okay, and in reply all the leaves that are separated from the main tree, yeah, reply good night and murmurs that it's nice to go to bed. So in that way the poem ends here. Thus, even though the poem may seem as very simple and direct, it underlines the fact that the nature has an automatic mechanism to control its things in the proper way, that everything is clearly and well arranged and planned. Okay, the falling of leaves points out to the rebirth and reformation, that if only those leaves fall down, new leaves will come. So this is all about the poem. So once again look at the point that actually the poet indirectly conveys through the poem. Yeah, through the falling of leaves. Actually the poem is all about the falling of leaves, but through this falling of leaves, the falling of leaves is actually a very simple thing, but through this simple thing the poet conveys a great lesson. Yeah, that nature has an automatic mechanism. The nature knows everything, the nature controls everything. So see, look at our nature. See, for example, if you go to a forest area, there we can find plenty of different kinds of flowers. Is there somebody to plant it? Is there somebody to water it? No, we can't find anyone. Then what happens? Yeah, because nature nourishes its things by itself. So that is what it is said, that nature has a mechanism. So through the falling of leaves, the poet actually teaches a very important lesson, that nature has got a independent mechanism of its own. And this falling of leaves actually suggests another idea of rebirth. How falling of leaves suggests an idea of rebirth. See, for example, the father tree actually welcomes the leaving of the leaving of leaflets. Normally, when the leaves are about to fall, normally the father tree will definitely be upset or be very sad. But here the father tree actually gets happy or becomes happy. Why? Because the father tree clearly knows that if only those leaves fall, new leaves will come. Okay, so that suggests an idea of rebirth. The falling of these leaves actually paves way for the coming of new leaves. So in that way, it suggests an idea of rebirth. So in that way, if you keep on analyzing the poem, you will get plenty of meaning, or you will get different layers of meaning. Anyway, I want to convey one thing, that even though the poem may seem as very simple and direct, it picturizes or it depicts many ideas or different layers of meaning. Okay, so this is all about the poem. So I hope that you understood and enjoyed the poem very well. Anyway, it's a time to wind up the discussion on this poem. So before going to wind up the session, please note the meaning of these unfamiliar words. The first one is pouting. Pouting means to show displeasure by thrusting out the lips. Then clung, to hold very tightly. Then frolicked, merry or joyous. Then breezes, a gentle wind. Then swung, to dance. Then whispering, the act of speaking in a quiet voice. Then coax, persuade. Then err is actually the old English form, means before. Then fluttering, to flap or wave quickly. Then rustling, to move with a soft crackling sound. Then huddled, it means crowded together. So it's better to not write down all these unfamiliar words in your notebook. That will definitely enrich your vocabulary. Okay. Anyway, the remaining doubts will be cleared. I hope that you understood it very well. So anyway, if you have any doubt, the remaining doubts will be cleared in the coming Zoom interactions. So I think it's a time to wind up. Anyway, thank you. Have a nice day. Okay, thank you.